When we talk about midlife crisis, what is actually happening psychologically? Is it, would you call it a breakdown or is it something else?
Oh, um, I mean, a breakdown of sorts, but maybe not how most people think, right? So most people, when you say midlife crisis, and we'll use the traditional man example, right? Married, kids, house, dog, minivan, the usual picket fence. And all of a sudden, one day he wakes up and he's like, nope, buying the Porsche, getting the young girlfriend, right? Like, I'm out of this, right? Which, of course, everyone struggles with because they're like, no, 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 come back to, where we were before. What's wrong with you? What happened, right? The way that I see the midlife shift, because I don't know if it's always a crisis, right? I do think that a lot of people, which kind of ties into culture, grow up with an expectation of how they are supposed to be. And with an inert promise that if you follow the rules and you do everything right, you will be happy. So now they get married, they have the 2.5 kids, they buy the minivan, they get the golden retriever, they buy the house, right? And they've done everything right. And they wake up one day and they're like, I'm not happy. And then they start going, well, what would make me happy? Right. And so a lot of people will then do a lot of the opposite of what they did that they thought would make them happy, thinking that the opposite might make them happy. Right. Thereby also destroying oftentimes relationships and breaking families and all of that stuff. Right. It happens to women too, but I think it happens to women a little bit differently. I find that women, at least in my experience of the women that were kind of in midlife, that come to me, they tend to have kind of like a more of a spiritual awakening where they're more like, I need to take care a little bit more of myself. They start eating healthy, doing yoga, being good to themselves, not burning themselves out for everybody else, putting better boundaries in place, doing more self-love and self-care. And I think that a lot of times the spouse in that relationship tends to struggle because all of those years that they were happy, she was being the traditional, whatever that is, mother and wife. And now all of a sudden seems to be becoming more self-centered. Because it's really funny. A lot of people will say to me, but like self-love and self-care, isn't that selfish? And I'm like, it depends on who's looking at it. What is self-love and self-care for me from someone who I used to always be available to and had bad boundaries around? Yeah, it's going to seem really selfish to them because you're now no longer giving me what you used to give me. So why are you keeping it for yourself? But if it is what keeps me safe and healthy and happy, then I'm actually doing it for a greater good because then I will have the available energy to continue to take care of people. And I think, when we're young, and I like to, we have a lot of energy and very few responsibilities. And the older we get and the more responsibilities we have and the less energy we have, more differently we have to deal with the energy that we have. And I think that is where a lot of people kind of then have that shift.
Is a midlife crisis always triggered by something external, for example, a divorce or a job loss or a health scare, or can it just arrive on its own?
I think it arrives on its own. And I think all the other things, well, not the health scare, but the divorce and all of that is kind of an outgrowth of a midlife shift.
So how does it just happen? How does somebody just wake up and decide?
I don't think they decide. I think it kind of creeps in, this feeling of I'm not happy. I'm not living the life I would like to live. I made choices based on my culture.
But there must be a trigger for
I
that
don't think
feeling.
I think it just comes with I think it comes with time and it comes with having less energy. I think it comes with children growing to a certain age and maybe not needing as much attention anymore.
Would you say it's a repetitive life as well?
Potentially.
Yeah.
But I think, look, it's different for everybody, right? But I just think there's that moment where they register that the way that they have been living up until now is not the way that they want to continue living. And then they all try in their own way to find meaning, happiness, to feel alive, to feel young again, whatever it is. And I think that a lot of people, because of that midlife shift, then get divorced because they're no longer compatible, right? And I think we said it in one of the other episodes where, every time that there's a shift in a relationship, you kind of start, like I was saying to you before when I was saying now you're the lion, but maybe in 10 years you come and you're like, well, actually, I'm a leopard now. And I go, oh, curiosity. Okay. What does it mean to be you now,
Mhm.
as opposed to seeing your behavior as pain to me? And instead, then trying to change the relationship, have different rules, be different people with each other
Mm.
to then be able to continue the relationship. But I think what most people do is they get so comfortable in the way that their relationship is that when something deviates, they try and pull it back, right? And I always feel like relationships are, let's say, cocoons, right? You're a caterpillar and you go into this cocoon, in this case together, which
Yeah.
doesn't happen in nature, but for the sake of the argument, right?
Yeah.
And now you're in this cocoon and the relationship slash the cocoon becomes more important than the individuals in the relationship because we want relationship stability. I think people change all the time, but they try to stay in this cocoon because they don't want to break this cocoon. But at one point, they are now butterflies and the cocoon is too small, which is why they then break the cocoon. I think if people are aware of the cocoon and the changes that are happening all the time and communicate these changes, then, and the communication is met with openness and not pushback,
Yeah.
then relationships can change and evolve. And I mean, I look at relationships, all relationships are, we'll take my sister and me, right? I've known my sister since she was born, and she's known me since she was born. And our relationship has changed multiple times over our lifespan. And yet we never think that adult relationships might go through the same process. With our siblings, we're cool. Sometimes we stop talking, then we start talking again. Sometimes we talk a lot, sometimes we talk less. And yet somehow the relationship continues to evolve. And for some reason, we don't want our adult intimate relationships to have that same organic kind of change. We want the cocoon.